I am Alyssa Milano and I am 35 years old. I am a cosmetic surgeon. 4 years back, I started my own clinic. It's a little place, but it has always been my dream. I used to work at a university hospital. After my medical internship finished, I used my weekends to practice cosmetic surgery. I didn't have much time to relax. Since I was a kid, I have always focused a lot on things I liked, often working too hard to reach my goals. When I was getting ready for university, I fainted on my way to school because I was working too hard. Training to be a cosmetic surgeon was very tiring, but I kept pushing through because I knew it would help me reach my dream. My husband, Owen, has been there for me through everything. He is in the admin department of the same hospital and is 6 years younger than I am. We got together at a goodbye party for a coworker's daughter. After that, we would say hello to each other whenever we saw each other at work. Owen works hard and is committed just like me, but he is also really nice. My life is very busy. Besides my job, I've been getting ready for my clinic, and I often lose sleep because of it. I spend all my free time, like my breaks and time at home, to build the clinic I've always dreamed of. I don't often eat well, and when I do, it's mostly microwave meals. One day at the hospital, I felt lightheaded and wobbly. Owen saw me shake and quickly came to help me before I could drop. When he found out about how I live, he got really worried. He said, "If you keep doing this, you'll break down, and all your hard work will be for nothing. I can't assist you with starting your clinic, but I can help you with your health. I'm here to help you." He even said he would come to my house to cook for me. At first, I was shocked by Owen's offer, but I realized that if I continued like this, my body wouldn't last much longer. I didn't know Owen very well because we had only talked a few times, but my coworkers said he was a nice person, so I chose to accept his help. Owen was really good at cooking. His mom is a nutritionist, so he learned about healthy eating when he was growing up. He made healthy meals for me, and the time we spent talking and enjoying the food he cooked helped me feel better during my busy days. On the first evening he came to make dinner for me, we had a long chat. I found out that we got along really well, and time went by quickly when I was with him. Soon we began to date. Because of Owen's help and support, I could open my clinic feeling healthy. Once the clinic was open and my schedule got busier, we talked about our future and chose to get married. Owen said he would stay home and look after the house. One evening he said to me happily, "Hey honey, I made steak tonight, my favorite meal." I could smell the yummy scent even before I opened the door. Since we got married, Owen has been taking care of the house so well that I never have to worry about anything. Starting my own clinic when I was young was tough. There were many problems and people said a lot of negative things during the journey. Knowing Owen was at home waiting for me with his kindness and help made me feel strong enough to handle anything. Running a clinic is hard, but more and more clients are coming in. I always come home to a tasty meal and Owen's happy smile. On my few days off, Owen and I visit spas or theme parks to unwind and have fun together. Those times make me feel really lucky to have him with me. I'm so happy to have these great days with my husband. I live in the apartment I rented by myself, so I pay the rent. I always put more than half of my money into our joint account for living costs. Owen takes care of our budget and pays the utility bills. Since he looks after the house, I want him to spend any extra money in any way he wants. I always send more money than we need each month. Thanks for always taking care of the house. You're such a big help. Feel free to spend the leftover money on whatever you want, I often tell him. Owen usually replies, "Cooking is my hobby, so maybe I'll buy a new frying pan." He'll also say, "Look, we've saved this much already. Let's add a bit more, and when you're less busy with work, we can go on a vacation." Not only does Owen handle the housework perfectly, but he also manages our finances really well. He's so reliable that I sometimes worry he might be overworking himself. I think it would be good for him to find a hobby, meet friends, or take a break from house chores once in a while. Even though I feel this way, I don't know how to bring it up to him. With my busy work schedule, the days pass without me saying anything. Then, about a year after we got married, I came home one evening and noticed something unusual. There was no smell of Owen's cooking, and he greeted me at the door looking flustered. "Sorry, I must have dozed off. I haven't started dinner yet, but I'll cook it now," he said, looking apologetic. "That's okay, let's cook together," I suggested. We ended up cooking dinner together, with Owen teaching me. It felt nice to share that time, even though it was rare for him to be anything less than perfect. However, after that day, it started happening more often. Owen wasn't just skipping cooking. Other chores were getting delayed too. I started noticing things weren't quite right. I'd come home and find laundry still in the washing machine. It seemed Owen had started it in the morning, but forgot to finish. Sometimes breakfast dishes were left on the table, and the groceries hadn't been done. When I opened the fridge and saw it was empty, I started to worry that something was wrong. Owen always had different reasons. Sometimes he said he was tired or not feeling well, but I couldn't figure out the real cause. 7 months after the first time he didn't cook dinner, I finally found out what was going on. One evening when I came home, the house was unusually quiet. Owen didn't come to the door to greet me, which was strange. The breakfast dishes were still on the table, and the laundry was still sitting in the washing machine. It was so quiet that I thought Owen might not even be home. I checked each room and finally found him. He was sitting in a room with large headphones on, mumbling to himself, and surrounded by gaming equipment I'd never seen before. He was playing a video game, completely focused on the screen. "Owen, what are you doing?" I asked, tapping him on the shoulder. He jumped, looking startled, but then smiled and said, "Oh, Alyssa, you're home. Sorry I didn't tell you earlier, but I found a new hobby. It's this game. It's so much fun. Once I start playing, I just can't stop." I stood there speechless, watching how happy he looked. It turned out he had been hiding the gaming equipment from me all this time. "Well, I think it's good to have a hobby and enjoy something you like." I felt a little concerned. He seemed so absorbed in the game that he didn't even notice when I came home. I smiled and said, "I'm glad you found a new hobby, Owen, but deep down, I wondered if he might be spending too much time on it." "I don't know much about games, but they seem fun," I added. Still, I gently said to Owen, "It's great you're enjoying this, but could you also do the housework when you have time?" I carefully chose my words because I didn't want to hurt his feelings. Owen looked a little embarrassed and said, "I'm sorry. I started playing in the morning and got carried away. I didn't realize how much time had passed. There's a tournament coming up for this game, and I think I have a good shot at the top. I've been practicing for it." I was surprised to learn that while I was away working, Owen had been playing games for over 12 hours straight. Seeing him so absorbed in gaming was a side of him I had never seen before. After our conversation, though, he cooked dinner for us as usual, and we enjoyed the meal together. The day ended without me bringing up the topic again, thinking it was just a one-time thing. But things didn't go back to normal. Over time, Owen completely stopped doing housework. When I left for work in the morning, he would still be asleep. He wouldn't wake up until around noon, and then he'd play games until dawn. He stopped cooking entirely, so I started bringing food home. Even then, he would eat quickly and quietly, sometimes in less than 20 minutes, before rushing back to his game. I tried talking to him, but his responses were short and distracted, as though his mind was always on the game. I began to notice that our conversations had almost disappeared. Before I realized it, the only times I saw Owen were when he was sleeping, eating, or gaming. On my rare days off, he would still spend all his time playing. As the days passed, more and more gaming devices started piling up in the house. I began to feel frustrated, but because I was so busy with work, and Owen had always taken care of the house before, I kept quiet, thinking things would improve once the tournament he mentioned was over. Unfortunately, the house was becoming messier and messier. I barely had time to clean, and Owen no longer did any of the chores. One evening, after working nonstop for weeks, I finally had a chance to relax. I decided to take a bath, only to realize there were no clean towels. I sighed, frustrated but too exhausted to even be angry. This wasn't the life I had imagined with Owen. It felt like the man I married was slowly slipping away, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I had no choice but to go to the laundromat in the middle of the night to wash the towels. Even with the house in such a mess and me dealing with situations like this, Owen remained completely absorbed in his video games. He didn't seem to notice or care about anything outside his gaming world. One day, I came home ready to take a shower, but when I turned on the water, I realized there was no hot water. Confused and frustrated, I rushed out, put my clothes back on, and went to check the mail. That's when I found several unopened bills for gas, electricity, and water spanning several months. I quickly grabbed the bills and headed out to pay them. It was a freezing cold night, and I couldn't stop shivering as I walked to the payment center. Though the walk wasn't far, it felt like it stretched forever. I started crying, overwhelmed by everything. It felt like the Owen I once knew, the kind, caring man who used to make life easier, was completely gone. I wondered if the happy days we had shared were lost forever. I thought back to the first time I caught Owen playing games for hours on end. Maybe if I had confronted him then and told him how I felt, things would be different now. Did I make a mistake by staying quiet? These thoughts only made the pain worse. When I got home, I wiped my tears so Owen wouldn't see I had been crying. I asked him, "Why didn't you pay the bills?" He looked up from his game, shrugged, and said matter-of-factly, "Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to, but I forgot." His casual response stung. Later, as I sat in the bath, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. Something didn't add up. When we first got married, Owen had assured me that the utility bills were set up to be paid automatically. On top of that, I had been transferring extra money into our joint account every month to cover all living expenses. Yet here we were, with unpaid bills and no hot water. Where had all the money gone? After my bath, I decided to check the joint account. What I found left me stunned. There wasn't even enough money left to pay 1 month's gas bill. I carefully went through the transaction history and saw that almost the entire amount I had been transferring each month was withdrawn the day after it was deposited. Feeling uneasy, I glanced over at Owen's wallet, which was lying on the living room table. I hesitated for a moment, but then decided to check its contents inside. I found a prepaid card used for adding money to online games and a stack of receipts from electronic stores. The receipts were for gaming equipment, expensive monitors, consoles, and accessories. There were so many of them, and the amounts on the receipts were shocking. Something snapped inside me. I couldn't forgive Owen for this. He had been spending the money I worked so hard to earn on games and devices while neglecting the house, our bills, and even our basic needs. I felt betrayed, angry, and deeply hurt. This wasn't the life I had signed up for, and I knew I couldn't continue like this. I had worked so hard to earn that money only to see it wasted on games. I found myself storming into the room where Owen was glued to his computer. Without thinking twice, I walked up to the desk and turned off the power to his gaming setup. "What are you doing?" I was about to win. Owen shouted, his voice loud and angry, a tone I had never heard from him before. For the first time, I felt a twinge of fear, worried he might lash out physically. But I couldn't back down now. I had to say everything that had been building up inside me for so long. "I can't take this anymore," I shouted back. "Look at these receipts. There's no money left in our account because you've been spending it all on games. You're using all the money I worked so hard to earn." Owen's face twisted in anger. "You told me I could spend money on my hobbies, so stop nagging me. And how dare you go through my wallet without asking? Did you really shut off my game just to lecture me?" "Yes," I said. "I said you could spend money, but only if there was some left after paying the bills and taking care of the house. Anyone would understand that. You're supposed to be a stay-at-home husband, but you don't even do the housework anymore. If you want to spend money on games, go find a job and earn it yourself. I'm done letting you waste my money on this nonsense." Owen stared at me, his face reddened with frustration. "If you're going to go this far, then I'm leaving. You can't manage anything without me. Don't take housework for granted. You should be grateful for everything I do." With that, he grabbed his wallet and phone, stormed out of the apartment, and slammed the door behind him. I assumed he went to stay with a friend since his parents lived far away. Once he was gone, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. It was a relief to finally say everything I had been holding back, but I knew this wasn't the end. Owen would likely come back when he wanted to play his games again or when he ran out of money. I doubted he would return as a changed man. As far as I could tell, he needed his games more than he needed me. I couldn't forgive him for that. The next day, I had a day off and I decided to take action. First, I sold all of Owen's gaming equipment. Then, I went to the local office to get divorce papers. I packed the rest of Owen's belongings and shipped them to his parents' house, along with the papers already signed on my side. I canceled the lease on the apartment, which was in my name, and started looking for a new place to live. I also contacted a moving company to help with the transition. A few days later, I moved into my new apartment. Standing in the empty space of my old home, I said a silent goodbye, feeling a mix of closure and liberation. I went to the bank and closed the joint account for our living expenses, which was also under my name. With everything done, I finally felt a sense of peace. It wasn't the life I had envisioned, but it was a fresh start. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe again. I was ready to move forward, leaving behind the mess that Owen and his obsession with games had created. The day after I canceled our joint account, I felt a sense of relief. That was the day when the living expenses were usually deposited in the morning. As I arrived at work at the clinic, my phone began ringing. Owen was calling repeatedly, but I ignored him because I was busy with patients. The calls came so frequently that my phone's battery died before noon. After finishing work in the evening, I turned my phone back on and saw another incoming call from Owen. This time I answered. He was yelling. "I can't access the account or get into the apartment. Mom called me too. What did you send her?" Calmly, I replied, "I've moved. There's no home for you to return to anymore. I sent your belongings and the divorce papers to your parents' house. Make sure to look through everything when you get there." Owen sounded shocked. "What do you mean? We never talked about divorce. I don't even have a job. How can you do this?" "You can't access the account because I canceled it," I said firmly. "You should start looking for a job, Owen. I'll also be requesting compensation for all the money you wasted. Goodbye." I could hear him shouting something as I hung up, but I didn't bother listening. For the first time in months, I felt unburdened. To celebrate, I decided to visit a bar I used to frequent during my medical internship. I let myself unwind and enjoy the evening, drinking as much as I wanted. A few days later, I worked late at the clinic. Exhausted, I stepped outside, only to find Owen and his parents waiting for me. I froze as they approached me. Owen's parents immediately started apologizing. "We're so sorry for what Owen has done to you," his mother said. "He told us everything, and it's all his fault. Please forgive him. He made a mistake, but for a year, he managed the housework well. He just gave in to temptation, but it won't happen again." Owen stood between them, crying. I'm sorry. I'll do the housework again. Please give me another chance. I sighed, keeping my tone firm. I'm sorry, but I have no intention of forgiving him. I've been working late and am exhausted. Please leave. Owen's tears intensified. I'll change. I promise. I'll do everything right this time. I don't need you to do the housework anymore, I replied coldly. I've already made up my mind. Please sign the divorce papers. If you find work, you'll be able to spend your own money on whatever you want. Suddenly, Owen's attitude shifted. His sorrow turned to anger. Where are my gaming devices? What did you do with them? He demanded. Oh, those. I sold them, I said without hesitation. Why don't you find a job and buy them back? His face turned red with rage. You've got to be kidding me, he screamed, his voice echoing in the quiet night. His true colors were on full display now, angry, selfish, and entitled. I stood my ground. No, Owen, you're the one who's kidding yourself. Did you really think I'd let this go on forever? Owen's parents looked shocked as he continued yelling, but I was done. I turned and walked away, leaving Owen and his anger behind. It was clear to me that the person I thought I knew was long gone, and I wasn't going to waste any more of my life waiting for him to change. One day after Owen left, I turned on his computer. To my surprise, it automatically signed into his WhatsApp account, something he must have set up himself. When Owen saw me, he looked nervous. What's wrong? He asked hesitantly. I see you've been messaging a lot of girls I've never heard of, I said, keeping my tone calm but firm. I've read all the messages. Some of these conversations started right after we got married. Do you want me to read them out loud? Wait a second. Owen stammered, panic written all over his face. At that moment, his parents seemed to catch on to what was happening. Their expressions turned from concern to fury. What's the meaning of this? His mother demanded. Owen tried to explain. No, it's not what it looks like. I can explain. But the truth was clear. I looked directly at him and said, You let multiple women into our home while I was at work, didn't you? One of them liked gaming, and that's how your obsession with games started. Am I wrong? Owen was silent, unable to deny it. Well, I continued, my lawyer will be contacting you soon. Good night. With that, I turned and walked away, not wanting to cause a scene outside my clinic so late at night. Owen tried to follow me, but his father grabbed him and pulled him back into their car. Over the next few months, we dealt with everything through our lawyers. It took time, but I finally got the divorce. I was also able to request that Owen pay back the money he wasted, along with compensation for everything I had gone through. I heard from mutual acquaintances that Owen's parents insisted he find a job, but he kept trying to meet new women through gaming. They eventually limited his access to devices, treating him like a child with strict rules. As for me, my clinic has been thriving. Up until now, I've been the only surgeon working there, but with new clients coming in every day, I was finally able to hire another surgeon. This allowed me to reduce my working hours slightly and gave me time to focus on myself. I started cooking at home, something I hadn't done in years. Although I made plenty of mistakes at first, I felt myself improving little by little. Cooking became something I looked forward to, and I'm even considering joining a cooking class when I can find more time. Life after Owen hasn't been easy, but it's been worth it. I've learned to prioritize myself and the things that truly make me happy. Each day feels like a step toward a brighter, more fulfilling future.